When I listen to Audible, I'm not flying to my third sales meeting this month. I'm on a romantic date with my vampire boyfriend, Pierre. That pale skin, those dark, mysterious eyes, and those pointy teeth. Take me away, Pierre!
Ma'am?
I want to become queen of the night.
Ma'am, something to drink?
Water, please.
Go to audible.com/start-trial, and your first download is free. Audible. Stories that surround you.
Blog Talk Radio.
On October 30th, 1990, a young woman by the name of Cynthia Lorraine Ricketts Richardson was executed and dismembered by her husband, Donald Glenn Richardson. Her body parts were scattered over a 50-mile area in and around the Columbia River in the state of Oregon. As if the abuse Cindy suffered at the hands of her husband wasn't enough, the state of Oregon delivered its own brand of injustice to not only Cindy and her family, but to a second family as well. That is, when Donald was released from prison after only a 25-year sentence for his heinous crime against his wife. When Donald was released due to a new law that had been passed by the state legislature, he committed a crime so horrible it should have earned him the death penalty. Sadly, he will be released from prison in 2023. The family has fought for years to keep him in prison even before he was released the first time. This is Cindy's story. This is finally the justice she nor her family ever received at the hands of the criminal justice system in Oregon, from the Attorney General down to the psychiatrist who stated that he was not a danger to others. While he was awaiting trial for Cindy's murder, his defense attorney stated in court that it was just a garden-variety murder. Now Cindy can rest and her family can find the peace that has eluded them for so many years. Justice for Cindy by Yvonne Mason, available today on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason, and I'm going to tell you what, if you had seen me running around this house about 20 minutes ago, you'd wonder how in the world I'm here right now. The ad you just heard was the release of my new true crime called Justice for Cindy. We will have the launch party for that on this show next Tuesday night. I strongly suggest you go and get the book so that you will be kind of educated as to why we're talking about that particular book. Tonight, however, my guest is a beautiful woman by the name of Kriss Bowles. And this show is the true story of her journey with her husband who had breast cancer, and he did not survive. The reason is simple and sad. People do not understand that men do indeed get breast cancer, and if it is not found and treated, it can be fatal. Kriss will talk about her journey and talk about the looks, the pathetic words when she would tell her story, and many that didn't want to hear it because it was not a woman, and men refused to hear it because it would go against the macho image. With this show tonight, Kriss hopes her story will help someone who is dealing with a loved one who has had breast cancer or has breast cancer. And she hopes it will help moms teach their sons to know what to look for, and if something is found, not to be ashamed to get it checked out. Kriss does not want anyone else to know the loss she has suffered because of breast cancer and her husband. Hello, Kriss. How are you tonight?
Very good. How about you?
I'm finally sitting down and not insane yet, but close. I want to thank you so very much, because coming on this show and telling your story is painful, and I'm sure it's going to bring up a lot of unpleasant and unhappy as well as happy memories that you had through the years with your husband, and maybe educate people out there that don't understand that men do get breast cancer. In fact, even though breast cancer is 100 times more common in women than men, the American Cancer Society estimates that each year about 1,900 new cases of breast cancer in men will be diagnosed, and that breast cancer will cause approximately 480 deaths in men. A man's lifetime of risk of developing breast cancer is about 1 in 1,000. And I also found out that the estimated 5-year survival rate for early-stage male breast cancer is 75 to 100%. For mid-stage male breast cancer, it's 50 to 80%, and for advanced-stage male breast cancer, well, sadly, ladies and gentlemen, there's only a 30 to 60% chance of survival after 5 years from detection. So, Kriss, based on that information, tell me a little bit about the history. First, tell me a little bit about you and your husband and how y'all met and your life, your journey together.
Well, it all started back in Millville, New Jersey. We were Jersey people, and I met him at the Millville airport at the, well, now is the Flight Line restaurant, Vernus Flight Line. And we got to become friends first, and then we started dating and all of that. This was back in 1988. And as we went along, we decided to move to Florida. And by 2001, we were out in Aspen, Basalt, Colorado for a wedding. And we, Brock found the lump. And back in 2001, who knew that there was such a thing as breast cancer for men? We waited till we got home, and he said, I've got pains in my spine and my ribs. He said, so I need to go to the doctor. So we stopped, and he said, asked for an appointment to get a referral for a X-ray to see if he had arthritis in his spine. And just casually mentioned to the receptionist that he had a lump in his right breast. And within 5 minutes, he was in to see the doctor. And then the next day, he went for a mammogram. And we really didn't think anything of it. We thought, hey, there's a problem. We'll just take care of it. We'll deal with it and get it over with. I didn't go with him, and I'm thinking, a mammogram for a man? Oh, boy. So he came out, and he said, it wasn't too bad. So that was right before Christmas, and 2 days before Christmas, we were given the diagnosis that he had breast cancer. So in January, he had a radical mastectomy on the right breast with 13 lymph nodes taken out, and all of them had cancer. From then on, it was, still just deal with the situation. We don't have to worry about anything else. We'll just deal with it. And he went through chemotherapy and radiation treatments and everything else. And it got down to, we did a lot of traveling in that time. He had retired, and we did a lot of traveling and got to see so many things, got to see this wonderful country, and took a couple cruises and everything else. And then came July of 2004, and his oncologist said to him, I'm going to put you on hospice. He said, that doesn't mean you're dying or anything. He just didn't want to give the diagnosis that Brock was near the end. So he went on hospice and everything, and came September 16th of 2004, Brock died of breast cancer. And right before he died, I said, I would see him laying in his chair trying to sleep or in the hospital bed. And I said, Lord, I'm not supposed to ask you why, but why are you taking Brock from me? I said, I don't want an answer, but I hope someday I'll get my answer. Brock died, and about 6 months later, somebody said something about, hey, how's Brock doing? I said, well, he passed away from breast cancer. And they said, breast cancer? Men don't get breast cancer. And I said, oh, yes, they do. And I realized right then and there the Lord had given me my answer. I had to do something to spread the word so others don't have to go through what he went through. I made a couple phone calls to a certain breast cancer site that's very popular, and they just treated me like dirt. And they said, more women get breast cancer than men. I said, but why aren't you speaking about men? Their lives matter too. And from that time on, I started my journey and met a lot of nice people and everything else. So it's the main thing that I want to say to people is get the word out there. If a wife goes to her husband and say, hey, we need to check you for breast cancer, keep at him until he gets used to the idea. It could save his life. And keep talking about it. And, the main thing, I've talked to women that have had breast cancer, and I said to one woman, do you have sons? And she said, yes. I said, did the doctor tell you that you can pass it on to your son? And she said, no. And I said, what do you mean? I said, you can pass it down to your son. And in turn, a father that gets breast cancer can pass it on to his children just like a mother can. So that's what, is so upsetting when I see all the pink, that people, if they would only speak out or if they would only put the words men too on that pink ribbon, it would get something going so others would know that this is a fact.
Why do you think that society as a whole is so hesitant to accept the fact that men do get breast cancer? Is it the macho thing? Is it beyond the realm of reality for them or the realm of logic for them?
I have a couple ideas about it. Because Komen came out with the pink ribbon and has started the whole movement because of Susan G. Komen getting breast cancer, they have made it a female thing. And because there's so much idea of sexuality and the women, it's pushed out there to sell products and everything else, how, sensual a woman is and everything else, that it would ruin the image to have a man come up and say, you look at a guy and say, oh, yeah, right, you're going to have breast cancer. I mean, it's just, that's how I feel. It's a woman thing. They want to keep it for themselves. It's that kind of situation. The women's lib people and all that, we have to care about the women,
And the research that I did, and it stands to reason because women and men are in some senses built the same. They have breast, they have brains, they have the main thing is the breast, because in some men there are milk ducts. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that is where the problem starts, is in the milk ducts. And what people fail to understand is that every one of us carry a cancer gene or a cancer cell.
Right.
And that cancer cell attacks the weakest part of our body. And it could have been that for whatever reason in Brock's family history, that part of Brock's body became the weakest part. Someone in his family, like you said, might have had breast cancer and didn't know it.
His mother had, died from it also, and plus his mother's sister, his aunt, also had breast cancer, but she has survived. So it was passed down to Brock that way.
When you were trying to educate people, did you feel a sense of helplessness and hopelessness that nobody was listening?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
That's
like
a
I
shame.
said, yeah, it and it was Komen. And I've also called the American Cancer Society because they put out advertising for all different kinds of cancer, but they only do it for women. And I said, why is that? You can reach so many people to get the word out about male breast cancer. Why is it not? Well, they just kind of push it aside. More women get breast cancer than men. And it's just not right.
Do you feel
it
like,
has to get out there.
I agree, because cancer is no respecter of persons. Young, old, male, female, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Cancer rears its ugly head and will attack who it will simply because it can. The sad part is, like you say, the advertising companies and the movie houses and Hollywood and people in general have, and I know the women liberals are going to hate me for it, but I really don't care, have used women as sex objects to sell their product, to sell their merchandise, to sell everything under the shining sun. Not so much men, because you don't see a man half-dressed on the television or in a movie house like you do women. Now, if it came to the point, or if it came down to the fact that all of a sudden you start seeing these men with mastectomies because they've had a breast or two removed due to cancer, I think, Kriss, it would really shock everybody, or most people as a whole or as a society, because they're going, they cannot comprehend that a man can get the breast cancer just because, and I'm going to be crass right now because this is really important, just because their boobs don't stick out to a 34D, C, or even a G, they still can get breast cancer. They still can lose that part of their body that is attractive.
There for a while, Facebook would not allow pictures of men that have had breast cancer they would delete them off of Facebook. They did not want the pictures shown on Facebook.
They have women all the time.
Yeah. But, it just, and thank goodness, things have changed, and on, different male breast cancer sites, and I repost them to the one I set up for Brock, which is a closed site, and people have to be approved before I'll, and another woman, Elizabeth, in Delaware, Elizabeth Henley in Delaware, her and I set up the page, and we screen it to make sure we don't get people that try to do ads and all that kind of stuff. We just want it for people to know about male breast cancer. So we've been able to repost pictures from different ones about the scars that the men go through and have because of it.
Getting back to Brock and getting back to what we have just talked about, women, we know that women who lose their breast, and a lot of women that have hysterectomies feel like they're less than a woman. When I had my hysterectomy, I shouted it from the rooftops. I was so glad to get rid of that piece of aggravation. I didn't know what to do. Please take it. But
yes, I know the feeling.
We have become such a society of quote-unquote beautiful people that we forget that it's not the outside that's where the beauty comes from. So let's go back to Brock and explain to our listening audience some of the feelings that Brock had and you had when every time he looked in a mirror, he had to look at his, and I'm putting this in quotes simply for this conversation, at his flawed body.
That's one thing. Brock was a very private person. He never talked about things like that, and neither did I. We just figured we'll get it done, and that is it. You know, we'll get him through chemotherapy and radiation, and we'll go on with our life. He was always without a shirt, and he used to tease me and say, you know, women ought to go topless in the sun because they say vitamin D helps, and women would not get breast cancer as often. And I would look at him and go, yeah, right, you know, after he was operated on. What happened here, you know, and just kind of tease him about it, you know. But that's the kind of person he was. He would talk about it. He would go out without a shirt on and work in the yard, or, you know, if people saw him, he never thought anything about it. He wasn't one to, you know, be the macho and say, oh, I've got to cover up because, you know, I have only one breast left. So, you know, that way. And I thought everybody knew about breast cancer in men. So I never asked him any questions. And that was, you know, one of the things that I had said when I've been interviewed for Fox 13 here in Tampa, that we just dealt with it. And he was, you know, I wanted to ask him questions because I would see him laying in his recliner, and I knew he had to know he was dying. And I just didn't know how to go about asking him what he was feeling or anything else, because I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I didn't want him to dwell on the fact that he was laying there dying. So a lot of things were not said. And to a degree, I don't think he would have really come out and said anything. He was, you know, private that way.
Well,
only once or twice he said, you know, something to me about different things, but that was it.
Watching the person that you loved with all of your heart, and going through all the emotional upheaval, and I say this from losing my sister and my aunts to cancer. You know, one day you're up, the next day you're down. One day there's hope, the next day there's despair. Tell our listening audience how you managed or didn't manage to put it in perspective, and how you dealt with it, and if you had any support from family to help you deal with it.
Because we were living in Florida, most of the family was up in Jersey. And phone calls and back and forth and a lot of good friends and everything, you know, that was the support that we got. And we had some wonderful friends here, and you know, one girlfriend, Carrie, was a nurse at the time, and she, you know, we called her one day, and she came right over, you know, to help. But other than that, it was just the two of us. And in those 2.5 years, we did a lot of traveling, and people would look at him and say, he can't have cancer. He isn't acting it. He's not showing it. I mean, he was like the picture of health until about the last 3 months before he died. And the pain, he didn't have much in the way of pain medication. He must have been really able to block out the pain. But it got to the point where he started using crutches, and then he ended up going into a wheelchair. And then, you know, from the recliner into a hospital bed, and then that was it. But I mean, you would look at him, and he wasn't running around like he usually did, but he was out there. We traveled a lot during that time, and there was days that we even forgot that, he had cancer. He had done his treatments and everything else, and when we'd come home, he would go to the doctor, and the doctor would check him and check his blood work and everything else, and he'd do another round of chemo or something like that. But other than that, I look back on it, and it was just amazing to see him. We traveled out to Colorado to see Brock's son, my stepson Brock, graduate college. And then we took off, and we went through other states and everything. And Brock had gotten to all 50 states, and he got me to 47 and 48 states. No, 47. Anyway, so in that time, we did so much, and he didn't look like he had cancer. And that's what made it a little bit harder when he started going downhill, because I thought we had beat it. He looked so good. He was just going all the time and doing things and helping people and all that. And then came the July, and that's, the 2 months before he died. And then I don't know if it would have helped if the doctor hadn't put him on hospice or not. I guess Brock felt in his mind that this is the end. I'm on hospice. This is the end. So but other than that, he was just an amazing human being. Very amazing. Like.
And you were very.
Excuse me?
You were very fortunate to have had those 2.5 years with him.
Absolutely.
And as good a health as he was, considering he did have cancer.
Right. Yes. Yes.
For the listening audience, I've done some research. As y'all all know that have been with me since the beginning, I do my homework because it's important with the guests that we have to talk with our guests and to educate the people. And this is a very important topic, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't share any of my other shows, share this show, because what Kriss is trying to do is educate people and maybe save someone else from going through the heartache that she went through. She and her husband had no idea. They were living the good life. They were loving each other, loving life, and whammo, they were blindsided. Mm-hmm. So here are some of the causes that I found of male breast cancer. About 85% of breast cancers in men have estrogen receptors on their cell membranes. Now, for those of you all who understand what estrogen is, and we women all know what estrogen is, we call it the bitch factor. Right, Kriss?
Yes. Yes.
Estrogen receptors on the cell membranes allow estrogen molecules to bind to the cancer cells. Estrogen binding to the cancer cells stimulates cell growth and multiplication. So, if a man has estrogen receptors on his cell membranes, he could very well get cancer. It would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kriss, it would be conducive for every man to be tested for an overload of estrogen. Do you not agree?
Yes, definitely.
Klinefelter syndrome is a major risk factor for male breast cancer in men, because men with that condition are 20 times more likely to develop male breast cancer than the male population at large. Klinefelter syndrome is where baby boys are born with much higher levels of estrogen than normal. So, you young moms out there, and you have little babies and they're boys, as soon as you give birth, have them tested for Klinefelter syndrome. A number of mutated genes have been linked to an increased risk of male breast cancer. For example, a mutation known as the BRCA2 mutation has been found in an estimated 5% of men with male breast cancer. There is also evidence that male breast cancer can run in families, just like Kriss said earlier. 1 in 5 men who develop breast cancer have a first-degree male relative, such as a father or brother, who also had a history of breast cancer. The rate of double mastectomies among men with breast cancer has increased significantly between 2004 and 2011. Yes, Kriss, you were going to say something.
Another reason it came to mind about men finding out about breast cancer and people spreading the word about it. I've known of several men that have gone for mammograms, and their health insurance companies will not pay for that mammogram because they say it's a woman's disease.
That is ridiculous.
It sure is ridiculous.
But yes,
it's
thanks
stupid,
to Obamacare, but thanks to Obamacare, I now have to pay for men to have proctology exams and other male things, and I'm not a male, but I have to pay for that.
Right. Yes.
Somewhere that's so skewed, it's not even funny.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
how about older women that have to pay for, birth control pills or something? You know, it's really ridiculous that...
I have to pay for a woman to have a baby, but like I said, I got rid of that equipment back in the 90s and shouted it from the rooftops. I don't need it, but yet I got to pay for somebody else to have it.
Mm-hmm. And it's also the idea, too, if the word got out about male breast cancer and men were checked regularly, the amount of money that the health insurance that Brock had spent on him, if he would have been able to detect it sooner, all that money that they spent on trying to get him better would have been, wouldn't have been basically, sounds horrible, wasted. Because he died anyway, because it was found too late.
So my suggestion is when a man goes to get his proctology exam, that the proctologist do a breast exam.
Absolutely.
I mean, as women, when we go to the gynecologist, that's standard operating procedure. They do an internal and they do a breast exam.
Yeah. Also, too, I wonder if some of the male doctors feel, even though they're doctors, they might feel a little weird. How do they approach a man that comes in and say, oh, here, we need to do a breast exam, and the guy doesn't know anything about it? The guy's going to think that there's something wrong. What's going on? Why are you thinking that I need this? The healthcare system is in such deplorable situation anyway.
We could spend another 3 hours on the healthcare system.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to preach, if the government and those that pass this insane bill is going to preach health care, then it's got to be a well-rounded preventative health care system, and that includes breast exams for men, just so that it can be detected early. Like you said, if Brock had been paying attention or had been to a doctor and as part of his yearly physical had a breast exam, it would have been a very small lump. They could have popped it out. They could have shot it with radiation. He would have had checkups maybe once a year, maybe every 2 years, and he could have gone on with his life.
Right. Absolutely.
But
also,
as it
too,
is, go ahead, sweetheart.
Go
ahead.
Finish what you, because I'm going in a little bit different direction, but
what I was going to say is, as it had to get large enough for him to even notice it. Because let's face it, Kriss, men don't pay attention to their bodies anyway.
Absolutely, Brock didn't. So
My husband's cardiologist says that women know more about their husbands than the men do because they pay attention to any little change.
Right. Yes. What I was going to say is that I have two stepsons, and something was mentioned when I was going on Fox 13 with Dr. Joe, and she asked if either one had had the BRCA gene test. So I called Adam, the second son, and I said something to him. Well, I called both sons. And when Adam went to see if he could have the BRCA gene test, to see if he could, be a candidate for breast cancer down the road, it was $5,000. His health insurance would not pay it. And that's a preventative thing to find out ahead of time if he would possibly be one to get breast cancer. So where is it that it's preventative? And his father died and his grandmother died from it. It's not like a man walking in off the street and say, well, I just want to see if I've got it. He has a reason to get one, and he would have had to pay $5,000.
The genetic marker is there. The probability is heightened because two people in his immediate family died from it.
Mm-hmm.
So
and an aunt also had it.
But luckily she survived.
Yes.
But that being said, his risk increased 100-fold based on the evidence of his father and his grandmother getting it.
Yes.
There's no logic in that.
Yeah. And down the road, it would save the health insurance company money if they knew ahead of time he would be checking himself. And if he felt any certain little thing, he would go to a doctor and have it checked, and it would save money down the road. It's just...
And this is the history, the research that I did. Part of what they say is preventing male breast cancer is that early detection can help prevent the spread of cancer. If there is a history of male breast cancer in the family, a.k.a. Brock, a person should check regularly for lumps and report any changes to a doctor as soon as possible.
Right.
In general, leading a healthy lifestyle is a good way to help prevent male breast cancer as well as other serious health conditions. But even if one lives a healthy lifestyle, which Brock apparently did, the genetic marker was already there. The propensity for him to get cancer was already there. So even if he lived as a virgin all of his life, the probability was 90-1 that he would get breast cancer.
Right. Yes. And also, too, with all the pink that's out there, and everybody knows it's breast cancer, when you see pink, you think of a baby girl. You don't think of boys, males. And to find, for macho men that, how can they don't want to go into a doctor and say, oh, I think I have breast cancer, am I a wuss? Or, and that's the whole thing. That's the upsetting part. Because they're not coming out and telling people about male breast cancer. Let the men know that this is possible so they don't have to feel humiliated to think they have a woman's disease.
That is true. And these are some of the things they can look for. Not that this is conducive to it, but some of the things that they can look for is drowsiness, dilated pupils, and adjusted for age and stage, the prognosis of breast cancer is similar to that in women. Men will experience a smaller tumor size and absence of paucity or local lymph node involvement. And then hormonal treatment may be associated with hot flashes and, God forbid, the I word, impotence. But I would rather my husband be impotent than dead, would you not?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Also, lately I came across something, and they said men at 68 years old should be screened for breast cancer. When Brock died, I read where men should be screened at 60 years old. Brock was 59 when he died. What about all these guys that I have come across and, talked to and everything else? They're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. It doesn't matter what age. They need to get a marker as soon as possible in their 20s to make sure their breasts are okay. And then, say, every 5 years, get checked again if there's no problems.
Oh, I agree. Because, like you say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. What's a couple of thousand versus $500,000? I know what it costs to treat cancer. My mother had breast cancer. Thankfully, and by the grace of God, she's still with me at 87 years old. But she got breast cancer in 1999. That's when they were diagnosed. She was stage 3. And they removed the lower lobe of her left lung. They did chemo and radiation, and it cost $500,000 to take care of my mom at stage 3 lung cancer. Now, if it took that much for her for lung cancer, and the insurance and the Medicare picked it up, but still, all of that money, if it could have been caught when it was just a small dot. Right. Just like if Brock's could have been caught by self-examination, but he didn't even know to self-exam.
No. The only reason why he went, like I said, he went to the doctor was because he had pain in his spine and his ribs. And the breast cancer had traveled to there. It ended up in his hips, his lungs, up into his spine, and then up into his brain before he died. So
and what people also don't know, Kriss, is there's 2 types of cancer. There's the slow-growing, which is the large cell carcinoma. Then there's the fast-growing, which is the small cell carcinoma. And people don't understand that once that cancer gets in the lymph nodes, and we have hundreds and hundreds of lymph nodes in our body, once it gets in the lymph nodes, then it travels to the lungs. It goes everywhere then.
They said afterwards, the doctors did say afterwards that I guess they checked the other lymph nodes after that, and there was like 33 lymph nodes that had cancer in them for Brock.
So, bless his heart, he doesn't know how long he had it before they found it.
That's for sure, yeah.
There was no early detection.
No.
Ladies
Brock
and gentlemen,
was a smoker.
And that probably didn't help.
But he had quit. In 1989, he had quit. So, he was that far along when he died in 2004 without smoking that way.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason, and tonight's show is quite serious. We definitely are off the chain tonight. We are discussing breast cancer in men, and the sad part about this entire show, my guest, Kriss Bowles' husband, died from breast cancer. And when she tried to educate people or spread the word or even find, for lack of a better word, a support group like women have, she was basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kriss, basically laughed at and ignored and said, Are you out of your mind? Men don't die from breast cancer. Only women do. That
right.
is a big lie, ladies and gentlemen. Men do die from breast cancer. Men do get breast cancer. We have tried to educate our audience tonight to the fact that it is inherited. If a father or a mother or a grandmother or a grandfather gets breast cancer, more than likely the son carries the marker. And more than likely the son will get breast cancer. If a child is born with an overload of estrogen, they stand the chance of getting breast cancer. It is my recommendation that parents of newborn baby boys have them tested for that overload of estrogen when they're born. It can be done. Because we don't want to lose any more people. I don't know about Kriss, but I hate cancer. I despise cancer. I despise the word because it rears its ugly head and
Absolutely.
takes wonderful human beings. Here Kriss had the love of her life, her soulmate. They both retired. They were traveling. And he was taken way too soon. The man was, 59 years old?
59, yes.
And the prime of his life. We don't want this to happen to another man. And yes, wear pink for breast cancer, but pick up a blue ribbon too, because that will tell folks that you are supporting breast cancer awareness for men. Am I right, Kriss?
Yes, definitely. I have the group that is on Facebook. There are many of us that have written the governors of this country, and the last that I knew, 26 of them declared, actually this week, the third week of October, Male Breast Cancer Awareness Week. Can't get the White House to do anything, but that's another story. But also, too, I have written NASCAR, because I love NASCAR racing, or racing, any kind of car race, almost any car racing. And trying to get the speedways that have races during October to do something for male breast cancer, plus, all the race shops. I sent letters out last year and everything else. This year, I got a hold of Martin Truex Jr.'s foundation, and if you go on his Facebook page for the foundation, you will see the pink, the ribbon that one of the stickers. So Martin his foundation has come out and supported male breast cancer awareness. Plus also last year in October, and October's a horrible month for me because of all the pink. Like I said, Brock and I met at Verna's Flight Line restaurant in Millville, New Jersey, and I sent up some stickers and pins that I make. And one of the guys... Excuse me?
My dog's raising Cain. He does that.
But anybody out there that knows Los Angeles Angels number 27, Mike Trout, he was back-to-back MVP for the All-Star game. I have a picture of Mike and his buddy Ron wearing one of my pink ribbon pins with the word Men Too on it. So that was just a real highlight for me to have Mike do it. And he could have stopped me from putting the picture on Facebook, and he said, no, let her do it, So I haven't met him yet, and that's one thing I'd like to do is because he's a great guy. So he and Martin Truex have stepped up to the plate.
Well, we are getting down, and I apologize for my rude Maltese. He is trying to be in protective mode. We are getting down to the end of our show for this hour, and I do want you to stay on with me for our next guest, author Kim Carmichael. But what I would like for you to do is give some advice for folks to know that how to handle it, what to look for, what to do. Just some thoughts about your journey and what you would like to leave for folks to think about for after tonight.
The main thing that, I've been in articles in the newspaper, different newspapers and stuff, and that question was asked, and the main thing is basically for the women to talk to the men and don't stop talking about male breast cancer until they do something about it. Make sure they get checked. Make sure that they know how to do self-exams. Anything to make it not such a stigma against men. They need to be diligent in taking care of themselves and not to feel humiliated or anything like that. It could save their lives. That's the main thing. That's, and when somebody, my stepson Adam, he knew this young man, and the guy wasn't acting right, and Adam started talking to him and everything else. And finally, the guy said to Adam, I'm going through breast cancer treatments. And I guess it was by the grace of God that this young man said something to Adam, and Adam turned around and looked. And the guy said, I don't feel macho anymore. I don't feel like a man anymore. And Adam looked at him and he said, my father was one of the most macho men, that you could come across. He flew, he had his pilot's license. He did all kinds of stuff. And even before he died, he took glider lessons. He soloed, but he never got his actual license. And Adam said, my father had breast cancer. He died from it. Don't feel humiliated. Step up and let the guys know. And if they start making fun of you, say, hey, look, it can happen to you. That's the main thing. I met a guy in Target one day, and I was looking for light bulbs or something.
So I'm going to be on a podcast. I don't feel good.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. I said something as I was walking away. I said, by the way, do you know that men get breast cancer? And he said, yes. He said, I had breast cancer, and he says, I'm okay with, I'm well now. And I said, have you said anything? I said, get a hold of Dr. Joe at Fox 13 here in Tampa. Tell her your story. Oh, I can't do that. And I said, why not? He says, I'm embarrassed. I said, that's not right. You're surviving breast cancer. You need to step up and help other men know that this is a fact. He was too embarrassed. I said, my husband died from it. He never had a chance to go out and tell people. That's not fair. God has given you a life.
Whatever's going on over here.
I said,
and sadly,
it's not right.
The end of the
sadly, men are macho and don't understand that they can help educate other men.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Off the Chain. My guest tonight, Kriss, thank you, my sweet friend, for telling your story. It's heartbreaking, but yet it's uplifting because you have decided to be the voice of your husband.
Yes.
And any man that is listening out there that think that you are too macho and too manly man and too I am bigger than life, no, you're not. You have a very good chance of getting breast cancer. So if you love your family, you love yourself, and you love those around you,
I'm going to be on a podcast.
You will want to get educated and take care of yourself. You will want to see if you have breast cancer. Because the greatest gift that you can give your family is to be around for a long, long time.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid to talk about the fact that you have had. Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, I was talking. But with Brock, he would have just become a grandfather in September, and he'll never get to see his grandson. So men need to think about that. Think about down the road that they need to step up and be checked so they have a life to live.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we will leave you with that thought. Share this podcast and understand that, yes, indeed, men do get breast cancer too. And for the month of October, you want to wear your pink ribbon for women's breast cancer, wear it, but also wear the blue ribbon for men's breast cancer. Kriss, sweetheart, thank you so much. And hang around so you can help me with my next guest, who is live online with us now, author Kim Carmichael. This lady, ladies and gentlemen, is a woman after my own heart. She began writing 10 years ago when her love of happy endings inspired her to create her own. Now, I'm not sure if that was to write happy endings or she found her happily ever after. We're going to find out. This beautiful woman has a weakness for bad boys and techno geeks. Now, I don't know how that meshes into one, but we'll find out. So she married her own computer whiz after he passed her test and proved he could keep all of her gadgets running. That could get kinky. When not writing, Kim can usually be found slathered in sunscreen, trolling Los Angeles and helping top doctors build their practices. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Miss Kim Carmichael. How are you, Kim?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me here.
You're quite welcome. I brought you in because I wanted you to hear the tail end of Kriss's story. I don't know if you've been listening to the show tonight or not, but it's been a very serious show, and I've asked her to stay on to sort of help me out with you.
I was, and actually my boss, who I love dearly, I know that he had a little scare with male breast cancer, so it's very important that men get checked as well.
Wow, so I just brought you in at the right show.
There you go. So
Divine
it is
Providence.
extremely important that everybody gets checked. So
absolutely. Okay, now on to even more off the chain tonight, ladies and gentlemen, with me, your host, Yvonne Mason. And as anyone that has listened to this show since the inception, ladies, tonight's show is a 30-second show, by the way. And it's just the three of us and 4,000 of our closest friends. And if you have been with me from the beginning, you know I can switch gears in a heartbeat, and we can go right off the chain at the drop of a hat, because that is how we roll. So, Miss Kim, yes. In the light of that, tell me a little bit about your history and your happy endings and your bad boys and techno geeks. How do those two mesh?
You just got to find the right mix. You know, I like a little edge to my men. You know, but they have to be able to fix my gadgets and make sure my computers are running. I have that's a big issue for me. So because I am a writer, so it's very important that everything stays running. So.
Oh, honey, I feel you. I understand. So tell me about your journey. Tell me how you started this journey. What brought this journey on?
I started writing actually Phantom of the Opera fan fiction many years ago. We're going when the 2004 movie released, so it's been quite a while. And I developed quite a following and thought, it's going to be an easy and great idea. Let me try and get published. So and then found out I knew absolutely nothing about writing.
That's
which
why
was
I laugh,
a bitter
because
pill
we all
to swallow.
we all start out that way. And when the realization hits us, it's like a slap of cold water in the face.
It is, and I'm going, but look at all the people that love me. How is this possible? Yeah. And so I took 2 years off writing and actually went to school. I took every workshop, everything I could possibly take, and learned from literally the basics of, show, don't tell, and, to deep point of view and everything, and just started again. And finally, after quite a few years, I finally got published. So that was great. And that was, of course, when now it's okay to be an indie author. But I don't know if people remember, but way back when it used to be frowned upon. So, and it wasn't so easy to publish yourself. But now it's so easy, totally acceptable, and a great avenue for authors. So
yeah, when I started 100 years ago, literally almost 100 years ago, there was no such thing as indie authors, and a group of us in the early 2000s banded together and said, watch us. We're going to break this ceiling because we are good. We know we're good, and people want to read us. So don't tell us we can't. So we did.
Absolutely. And technology evolved, too, so it allowed us, So I am definitely a hybrid author. I'm with publishers, and I'm also self-published.
What do you write exactly?
I write contemporary romance with a twist of pop culture in it.
Okay, explain that. That's a new one.
I write very contemporary romance, but I do like to base my stuff off of like what's happening now and being pretty trendy, and a lot of influence from Bravo TV and all the stuff I watch, and just what's happening in Los Angeles, which is where I live and work. So.
Yeah, and that brings me up to this point. First, I saw this note that I wrote myself because I found it very interesting, where your husband had to prove himself before you would marry him. Did he have to recalibrate all of your computers, or did you deliberately break one so he could fix it?
I had a sad face on my Mac way back when. I don't know if you remember when you used to turn on the Mac and it would have a happy face.
Mhm.
Okay, and when they would die, they had a sad face, and he brought it back, so he was a keeper.
It'll snatch him right up, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I want you to know that I've been married 23 years, and that Mac still runs.
Well, see, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. She not only got a bad boy and a techno geek, and she got a keeper, but he keeps her Mac running. And Macs are notorious for breaking down.
Well, you know what they say, once you go Mac, you never go back. So.
and I love the thing that you wrote about that you're slathered in sunscreen and trolling Los Angeles.
In my real day job, I am actually a pharmaceutical rep for skincare. So.
When I read
I work with
I'm
doctors.
Thinking, of course, my writer's mind said, and what is she wearing?
I usually am pretty covered up because I don't want to get sunburned. I work with doctors, and if you've ever been to like a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon or a cosmetic doctor, if they have their own skincare line, chances are it's probably my line. So the company I work for.
Wow. Well, listen to you.
It's a pretty fun job, so.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because in writing your romance, do you ever use, and I don't mean literally, but because Los Angeles is so diverse and because you've got so many doctors out there, do you catch yourself writing stories based on some of your experiences and some of your...
Absolutely. And in fact, it happened to me today. One of my books actually centered around a sales rep, and I was with a consultant with my company, and we were doing what's called a ride-along, and I walked into the practice, and the practice was actually group reading my book, and they started quoting my book to this man I was with, and it was quite embarrassing, but he said, well, you have great client relationships, so...
That is
I have written a pharmaceutical rep because you tend to write what you know. I've written doctors. You kind of, and some of the stuff gets, for my daily life gets put in there, a little spark or something, But then, of course, it's amped up a bit because it is romance. So,
How do you, because romance is not something that I write everything else. I've somehow lost the happily ever after along the way. How do you keep your romances fresh and unpredictable and on the cutting edge? Because, sometimes, remember those Harlequin romances? And it was the same plot line.
I love a good Harlequin romance.
How do you keep it fresh?
Okay, first of all, romance is a sure thing, and that's one of the things I love about it. And the definition of romance by the Romance Writers of America is a satisfying ending, be it a happily ever after or happy for now. So I love that. I love knowing that at the end of all these trials and tribulations, you're going to have a hero and heroine together. And I just love that. I hate when I'm watching. So everybody has so much serious in their life. I just want mind candy, and that's why I love romance. For me, sometimes it's the characters that are different or just a setting or something, and I do a lot of what my editor says to do, which is just write whatever I want, even if it sounds crazy. And when I do that, I get great feedback. It's when you try and reel yourself in that it becomes, I think, predictable and just like reading the same story over and over again.
Well, that also happens in suspense. And some of the authors that I've read down through the years, I pick the book up and I go, yep, same plot line, different day, different setting, same characters.
Right, and you try not, and I try and keep track of that. I do work, my editor and I have a really close relationship, so we tend, she'll be like, that's a little close, or let's figure out a different way, but she always is pushing me to just stretch the envelope or, go for it, write whatever I want, even if it sounds nuts.
Kriss, jump in here and ask a couple of questions, because I can feel them burning in your head.
Nothing like being put on the spot, right? No.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're off the chain, ladies. We can do this. Well, think about it, because I'm going to ask Miss Kim a question. Are you a Los Angeles native or a transplant?
I am absolutely a native. I was born in Beverly Hills. I lived in the San Fernando Valley right during the time of the Valley Girl, all that hype and everything. And now I live on the outskirts of Los Angeles, but I've always lived around here.
So you could sort of use the Valley Girls in some of your...
Absolutely. I'm sure she sneaked in a lot. So it's taken years to get rid of the accent, and I think I still have it. I know you've got some books out now. Facade is one of those. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Facade.
That's my baby. That I had stepped away from Phantom of the Opera fan fiction when I decided I was going to get published. And there was just a story burning in there. When I did write Phantom of the Opera fan fiction way back when, I always did it as a modern twist. And I had a story, and, all these things that were taboo many, 12, 13 years ago became not taboo now. And so I did a fan fiction. I wrote a modern take on the Phantom of the Opera. And that it's one of my more popular books, and people love it. And there's 4 books in that series, so it's kind of a fun – they're each based off a fairy tale. So
I'm definitely going to have to check you out now. You just piqued my interest, because Phantom of the Opera is one of my favorite pieces.
It's the best.
Because
I've seen it over 100 times.
You really do like it.
I'm hardcore. This is major here.
It has such a poignant. It's more than a love story.
Yeah. And in fact, the person I was with today was a Phantom fan, so it was kind of fun talking to him because you rarely get a man that's a Phantom of the Opera fan. So it was kind of neat to have that. So.
That is, yeah, because most men could care less about Phantom of the Opera.
And when I told him that Andrew Lloyd Webber did the sequel, he was very excited. So I have to remember to send him the link later today. So.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, make notes. Let me spin off of this just a little bit. We all have passions, things that we're passionate about. Like we talked about before, Kriss is passionate about men understanding that they can get breast cancer and they should be checked. Tell me a little bit about your passions.
I think I'm just have a passion for wanting to be happy and make things better, and that's why I love romance. I love a great story, and I love knowing at the end of it I'm going to be smiling. Even if I'm crying, I'm going to be smiling.
In that passion, do you find yourself putting yourself out there to people to give them some of that energy that you have so that they can play off of that and have hope and energetic passion for a happy right now or a happy ever after?
I hope so. I mean, I'll get some messages from my fans, and they'll say that, they were up all night reading a book and they were crying and they were laughing, and that's what means everything at the end of the day when someone gets what you wrote. It's not even so much sometimes about how many books you sell, if you have that one person that really gets what you wrote.
And I agree, because as writers, if we can't write, I know if I can't write, I go absolutely insane because the voices don't shut up. Do you find that same thing going on in your head?
I end up on anti-anxiety medicine if I don't write. So writing has saved me in a lot of ways. It gives me I have a high-pressure job. I focus a lot on details. I get obsessive about things. And just being able to go into that other story and think about my character's trials and tribulations instead of mine it's a relief, and I love it. And that's my editor. I make her nuts because I'll finish a story, and she knows right away that we have to have another story in the works, because I'll go crazy if I'm just sitting around waiting for her to edit. I have to always be working on something, even if it's just outtakes or anything.
Writing is more than, for you, writing is more than a passion. It has become like therapy, so to
speak. Absolutely. I am an unhappy girl when I am not writing, and I get anxious and I make people crazy because I'll get obsessed on a certain thing, and it's wonderful to be able to go into that other world, and that's why I love it. And with romance, it's all a fantasy, and I think that's what makes it so much fun.
Because you can get lost in that, and then your everyday high-stress job level just fades away into nothingness until the next time you have to put that coat on.
Absolutely. And, I'm a sales rep. We work on quotas. We work on numbers. Everything's very number-oriented. So to be able to step back from it and just step into the world of two people that, it's the worst time in their life to fall in love, but here they are anyway, is total therapy. It's a ton of fun.
Well, let me ask you this question, because I ask a lot of my guests who tend to write in one or two genres, I ask them this question: have you ever thought about stepping out of that comfort zone and writing in a genre that you're not familiar with?
Okay, I am a romance purist. That's what I read. That's what I write. But I do definitely 100% want to write a Regency. So I'm just thinking about how to go about doing it. So that's in the works. I'm going to work on it. I'm probably co-author it with my editor so she can help me with the research.
Well, that would be an excellent way for you to start.
Yeah, because the only reason I haven't delved into Regency was because the research, and the last thing you want to do is have things to be, have wrong things. The readers know, and you definitely want to be genuine. So,
if you don't know,
even if you're writing a fantasy romance, so.
if you don't do the research, especially with Regency or historical novels, they will know, and they will call you out on it every single time.
With Phantom fan fiction, let me tell you, if you get one thing wrong, they are at you with, axes and picks and shovels. So, so I understand. But that I know really by heart, so that wasn't an issue. But with Regency, her and I have talked about it, and we're thinking of doing a co-authorship, and she would help with the research, which would be amazing because she's really, the smartest person I know.
That would be because you still are going to have your romance in the Regency, but you just got to make sure.
And it's kind of fun. Regency has limitations and not limitations that we don't have in contemporary, so it's kind of a fun dynamic, and it makes things different.
Absolutely. Kriss, you got some questions now, my friend?
No. It's just so nice listening, learning.
Well, as writers, we are, and I'm sure Kim can tell you, we are a strange breed. Yes. We live in a world not of our choosing because we can't live anywhere else. The voices won't let us. As Kim says, she lives in her romance world. It's therapy for her. I live in, I don't know what kind of world this is. It's a mix. It's whatever pops up on any given day. But as writers and as artists in general, and I know, Kim, like me, you probably have a variety of friends who are musicians and artists and authors, especially in a beautiful town like Los Angeles.
Yes, absolutely.
We are a strange breed.
Oh, yeah, we're whacked, yeah. We're whack jobs.
We say and do things that people go, what? What? But we really are normal in our own minds, I guess. Yeah, it is, and it's funny because I'm the type that if I find a song that happens to go with the scene I'm writing at that moment, I'll listen to the song 100 times in a row because I'm in the car a lot, so I'll just keep on repeat, and I drive everybody crazy. I'll come home and listen to it. We just have our own thing. I've passed exits on freeways because I'm in my own head. We live in our own world. So I understand that passing. I've passed my own house before.
Yeah, I do
and
too.
I live
because
off of the main road.
If your characters are talking and you're in the car, I have a lot of windshield time in my job. A lot of car time, and it's a great place to think about plot and everything. And and all of a sudden I look up and I'm like, where am I? I don't even know where I'm at the moment.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that does that.
No,
How did
I think
get here?
it's healthy. I love when that happens. That means that scene's going to be amazing.
Because I've asked myself before, how did I get here? What was I doing before?
Yeah.
Where was I going?
And you're kind of blinking around going, I know where I'm at, but I'm not really sure where I'm at. So.
Or there's mornings I woke up and said, what's my name? Who am I really?
Yeah.
So, Kriss, we do that. We're a strange lot. And our motto, my motto is what's normal for the spider is chaos for the fly.
And I have little notes all over the place with bizarre little things that I know what it means, but no one else does, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, or I'll email myself a note and it just says, maybe just the character's name and rain or whatever. And I know what I want to do, but it's, I find that all over. My husband knows never to touch a paper ever. Even if it has even if it's illegible what it says on there, not to touch it.
Because it's important. Go ahead, baby.
Brock used to say it's like having a party going on inside your head.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That is exactly
I'm never lonely
right.
because I have so many voices in my head. It's terrific.
Kim, do your voices fight with each other?
Absolutely. My hero and heroine will get into it in my mind. It's great.
On that note, have you ever caught yourself when you're trying to write a book and you're trying to write it your way because you know how you want it to go, but no matter how you try to write that scene, those voices are not going to let you make it work because they want to go in a different direction?
And that's when you know you wrote an amazing character. If they're going to be that strong that they're going to change what you wanted, that's when you wrote an amazing character.
And you want to? I have to get up and walk away.
Yeah, well,
I'll
I'll text my editor and go, oh my God, this is what they're doing right now, and she always says the same thing. She always says, go with it, because that's obviously what they want to do.
But you think you're going insane because you're having these arguments with imaginary people. I mean, we're not 5 years old anymore. We don't have imaginary friends.
You know what? I always tell people, and only other artists ever understand this, is in my head they're real. I know down to their shoe what they're wearing, and I'd a lot of times rather hang around them than a lot of the people I know. So.
You're a woman after my
Did you
own
ever
heart.
see the movie Stranger Than Fiction?
Yes.
Do you remember the part where she finally meets Harold Crick and she looks at him and she's like, your shoes, your hair, your hands. I mean, that's how. I mean, I think Emma Thompson captured that so perfectly when she met her own character, because you would know your own character if they walked up to you, if you wrote them correctly.
Oh, absolutely, you would, because they're very real. I see them in my sleep.
Yeah, you see them in your sleep. You know everything. I mean, you know what they had for breakfast. I mean, they're amazing. So,
do yours wake you up in the middle of the night?
Absolutely, and that's my husband's pet peeve is when I don't want to forget something, and you know that feeling where you have the perfect line or something in the middle of the night, and I'll text it to myself, and of course the light from the phone comes on, and that makes him crazy. So.
Chris,
but I'm not going to lose the line, because then you wake up going, what was it? Like, what was the line? And you never remember it. Like you think you're going to.
It's never the same if you forget it. It does never does it play the same, because the voices go, ha, you missed it. I hate it for you.
Yeah, they're like, you should have taken your chance when we gave it to you. So I do that, and then always at the end I always write at the end of the day any notes I had at the bottom of my story, so I don't forget them. And sometimes I forget to delete them out of my story when I give it to my editor, and she's always laughing at me because she's like, you write the most bizarre notes to yourself.
Do you find yourself making empty folders with working titles?
I don't do that because I do everything online. Everything's electronic for me. But I do have a lot of blank pages with titles that I want.
Well, what I do is everything's online for me too. But if there's a story dancing around in my head and it won't shut up, I have to build a folder for it and put it on on my external hard drive.
Oh, I see.
Put a working title on it, because if I don't, it won't shut up. I might not touch that book for years, but it won't shut up until I do.
I have a few like that right now. Yeah, and that's also, like a little document or folder is a good place to just put if you have like what a character looks like or a little sketch or something. Yeah,
it drives me crazy.
Sometimes when I'm waiting at doctor's offices, I'll write some outtakes, so I'll put that kind of stuff I'll save that kind of stuff. So. And that's always interesting, like, then the doctor comes in, you're like, can you hold on a second, let me just finish the sentence now.
And they go, oh. And there goes 3 minutes of your 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. No, usually when the doctor comes in, I just close the computer. So. Well, but they all know I'm an author, and they think it's pretty cool, so.
What about typecast? Tell me a little bit about typecast.
That's my baby. Typecast was... The spark for that was what happened to the actors, not the characters, but the actors who were played in the Breakfast Club when they grew up. Like, what happened after they had this movie that literally changed a genre, and that's very much my era. So I wrote my 4 characters, and 20 years later, basically after their movie, and so the first one dealt with the villain, and that was typecast, and then there's 2 more follow-up books to that dealt with different characters in it.
And then there's Limelight.
Yes, and Limelight was the geek and the girl, and then Idolized is the guy that is always the star, the superstar. So, and it's all their love stories, and the stories intertwine, And one thing I'm very proud about all three of those stories is, and this is an idea from my editor, and I took it and ran with it, is we put the script of the movie that they were in that changed their genre, the movie was called Hollywood Stardust, and we put it throughout the book. So there's little snippets of the script throughout all three books, and I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool. That's an interesting concept to do.
Yeah, my editor had that idea, and it was kind of a neat concept. And I would always write the story first, and then have to go back and write the screenplay part. And I would always be bitching when I had to go back and write the screenplay part. But now that I look back on it, it was my favorite part of all three books was that we had this continuing story of the screenplay going through. So,
well, if with the people that are listening to us, and they know that I'm already insane, now they've determined that Kriss, you are insane because y'all hang out with me.
We're in good company.
But if someone wanted to purchase your books, first, how many do you have out that are available?
Okay, I'm just going to quickly ask my PA who's listening if she can tell me how many books I have, Julia, and I'll tell you in a second. I think it's around 12.
Okay. Where can they be found?
They all of them can be found on Amazon. The ones that are through more traditional publishers can be found on Barnes & Noble and Kobo and all of the traditional outlets. I found for me and self-publishing, Amazon was really the way to go, so that's what I did. And I'm also published with Kindle Press, which is a division of Amazon. And they only publish on Amazon because they're part of Amazon.
They're Kindle.
Yeah, so it's Kindle Press, yeah.
They would find you under Kim Carmichael, correct?
Yes, and I had won the Kindle Scout program. So Typecast is part of Kindle Press, which is part of Amazon. And I guess I will announce it here today for the first time that I just am signing another contract with them, that they offered me a contract on a book called Draw the Line.
Fantastic. Look at you.
Yeah, it's a really cool program, and I love them. And, of course, being part of the Amazon family is amazing. So,
absolutely. Of course, all of my books are Kindle download and uploadable, whatever they call it anymore. You never know from one day to the next if they're going to change it or not. And I have been with them forever, and they are absolutely wonderful to work with. They answer every question you have. Nothing is too stupid to ask them, and we've asked some pretty stupid questions them through the years. But
I'm working with one of their publishing divisions, and it's been a really amazing experience. So I'm really, really happy to be with them, and I'm really happy that I got an offer on the second book. So that's pretty cool. And Julia just answered my question. We have 15 books, including anthologies.
Excellent. Look at you. Yeah. And how long have you been published? Since 2004?
Yeah. Well, not published since 2004. I actually got my first publishing contract 2013. It took me quite a while. So, as I said, I took some time off and went back to school, because I had a nice little rejection pile that was pretty depressing. So.
Oh, honey, let me tell you about rejection piles. I had enough rejection letters in the 90s. In the 70s. That's how far back I go. That I could wallpaper my entire house.
So I wanted to at least give myself the best shot. So I needed to learn, the craft. It's not just telling a story, but it's also, learning the craft of writing. So.
And let's talk about that for just a minute, Kim, because a lot of people that want to write, they don't understand that when we practice our craft, that it's not something that we just up and do overnight. This craft is honed from day one when we first pick up that pen or we first type that first scene, because with each book that we do, we grow, correct?
Oh, my gosh, every book. Every book, there's a lesson.
And rejection letters are not always a bad thing.
They're not. You can have a good rejection, that is for sure. But sometimes it's painful. But, yes, you can have a good rejection.
But it makes sense.
Because if they give you a little feedback, that's worth its weight in gold.
Because then you can take it and you can rework it. And ladies and gentlemen, don't do like Stephen King did with his first book. Don't throw your work in the trash. Whatever you do, don't throw your work in the trash, because you don't ever know. I can't tell you the times, and I'm sure Kim's the same way. I can't tell you the times I get so frustrated, I just say, forget it, and I wanted to trash it. The first book I ever wrote, Kim, I wrote longhand. This was in the 70s. I still have the original manuscript. So when I published in 2006, I used my original manuscript and added to it. That was the manuscript that got rejected.
Yeah, never throw anything away, and never, because you'll regret it. Absolutely. Now, with electronic stuff, it's probably easier not to throw it away. So.
Well, some people delete it and say forget it.
Yeah, I don't do that. My first story was it was Phantom of the Opera. It was 300,000 words. It had everybody's point of view, including the cat, I think. I'm not even joking. I mean, but there's some gems in there that I still, I have since taken it down. But there's a line or two in there I'll steal for myself. It's my own work, so I'll steal from it. That I still love, or a concept or something. So, and there were 3 stories in that, and altogether I want to say it was over 1 million words. It was crazy.
And you made a very valid point that it had everybody's feedback, and getting feedback is great, but what people don't understand is their interpretation of what we write might not be our interpretation of what we're putting on paper, which is fine, but they have to understand they're reading with a different interpretation than we're writing. It doesn't make one or the other bad or good or right or wrong.
Right. Correct. And nowadays I usually just use my editor as far as the sounding board, and then I have a group of amazing ladies that do some beta reading for me, and they'll tell me if something's off, and of course my amazing PA is great with telling me. So, but you've got to keep the circle small, because you know what they say, opinions are like, so.
Yeah, everybody has one.
Yeah, and so you just have to choose the opinions you want to have, so.
And getting a different perspective is a great thing in our craft, because we're always in the weeds. We get in that book, and I'm a terrible dyslexic. I know what I'm thinking. I know what my fingers are putting on the keyboard, but when it hits the screen, it's not always what I thought it was.
Well, and that's why you have beta readers and editors and all these people, not only to keep the story on track, but to get all those mistakes out. So.
Oh, and I can make some doozies too, and I'll make that same mistake 15 times when I'm trying to correct it, because I go back and I read it and this isn't right, and I correct it, it's still not right. But that being said, if we didn't have our small group of beta readers and editors, there is no way that we could perfect our craft, which is always evolving.
Right. It is.
Kriss,
and as there's a lesson for every story.
And that's another thing. Even with your contemporary romances, if someone reads a book with an open mind, someone will find a lesson or find something educational in every book.
Absolutely.
Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yes. And I think for the author, there's also a lesson, something that you learned, something about the craft or about storytelling, and I think that's one of the most amazing things about writing.
And things about human nature.
Yep.
I mean, you think in everything that we write, there is human nature is involved, whether it's sci-fi, whether it's romance, whether it's horror, whether it's true crime, whether it's suspense, whatever it is, we're dealing with human nature. And when we write our stories, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we write our stories, we put a lot of ourselves in that story.
Oh, absolutely. There's a piece of me in every character, especially the heroines. You know.
Do you feel
and
totally
in fact,
exhausted?
Julia, who's my PA, will oftentimes when she's reading something, she'll send it back and go, "This is you," and I laugh because it is.
Do you find yourself totally exhausted when you're done with the book?
That's when you know it's good. If you're not exhausted, if you're not crying with them, if you're not laughing when they're laughing, if you're not turned on when they're having sex, you are doing something majorly wrong.
Time to go back to the drawing board, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. So, I mean, seriously, people have asked me about sex scenes before, and I'm like, if you are not turned on, go rewrite it.
Because there's nothing to it. It becomes plastic.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just insert tab A into slot B.
Well, it could be for some people. No, we're not.
Yeah,
no.
well, that's not romance, though. That's not romance.
I had to do it. I'm sorry. I had to do it. This is off the chain. What can I say? Oh, Lord, only us. Kriss, you want to jump in here for a minute, my friend?
No, I'm enjoying this.
Oh, well, good.
I really, I'm learning.
It tells me. See, now, the thing is, Kriss, you're getting a mini workshop between two writers of one with contemporary romance, one with everything under the shining sun but contemporary romance. And so now you can write your story.
Yep.
No. No.
It's a story to write. It's a story for the ages. I'm telling you, Kriss, you've got a story there. And it's one that needs to be told. Am I right, Kim?
Absolutely. It's a really important story. It really is, and I think it's something nobody likes to talk about, especially men, because maybe they feel embarrassed or self-conscious about it, and it's nothing to be self-conscious over. It's something that has to be spoken out and checked.
The bad part for me is I'm very I have a hard time, as you can tell, putting things into words. How I'm very short with everything. I can't glorify something, or I can't make it flowery. I mean, some of the books, can't describe things the way others do, and it's just right now. I just
you can always also, if you have a story and it's hard to put it together, you can always get a ghostwriter or someone to help you, or a co-writer that will help you. Because
that's yep.
I think that your story, I caught the last few minutes because I was trying to get back from work, so I didn't get to listen to everything, unfortunately. But it is very important, to men and to women.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. Yes.
And education.
This isn't fluffy romance. This is serious stuff. So.
And education is important, and it's like Kim said. People will read a book, and they get lost in the book. And people like reading about, and Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, people like reading about other people's lives and how things in life affected them. Am I right, Kim?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this is something that even to get the women to read it so they know what to look for and get their husbands checked, or brothers, dads, whoever, boyfriends.
Brock and I weren't together
I'm
that
very
long.
glad that my boss was checked, but this was something that ran in his family, so he knew to get it checked out.
That is great. That way.
And you, Kriss, you said you and Brock weren't together that long, but and Kim can probably attest to this. It's not the length of the journey, but it's the stories within that journey that are impactful for others and for yourself.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
So that's something to think about. Ladies and gentlemen, as y'all know, this is Off the Chain. I'm your host, Yvonne Mason, and tonight we've been off the chain on good Lord, it's been off the chain. We've gone from men's breast cancer in the first hour to contemporary romance to bad boys and geeks, and there's no telling what else we'll talk about in the next 20 minutes. So if you're just tuning in, you've got to catch up with the archives when it goes out. Kim,
yes.
If you had the opportunity to put one of your books into a movie, which one would you pick?
Without a doubt, Typecast, hands down.
Why?
Well, those characters to me are extremely vivid. It was based off a movie, and I feel it would be really entertaining and it would lead itself to a series. But every author wants their book made into a movie. So,
but some authors have
of all the characters I ever wrote, it was the Hollywood Stardust series of stories, and those characters that to me were just so vivid and lent themselves to something like, a big screen. I thought that they were, but every author thinks their characters are amazing. So,
well, that being said, I have watched down through the years, used to, the movies that came out were full of class, they were full of style, they were full of grace.
Right.
The actors acted. You could tell by look on their face what they were thinking and where they were going with the next scene. Sadly, for whatever reason, we've gotten away from that, and sadly, some of the writers, most of the writers, have lost their imagination, so they're rewriting old movies, which sometimes is a good thing, sometimes not so good. And we have so many wonderful books out there between indie authors and traditionally published authors. There's so many books out there that would make excellent movies. Where have we gone wrong?
I don't know, and I agree with you. And, there have been remakes, and I'm sure some of them are fine. But, there's classic movies, from my era, which is the 80s, and I've probably made that pretty clear, that I don't have any idea why they're being remade. They're remaking Dirty Dancing. I honestly feel that I just can't even go there.
That's sacrilege.
Exactly. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you. Yes. I can't even go there. I mean, they just remade Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't know what to say about it. So, I think that as a society, we're stretching for creativity, and everybody's they're so concerned about the dollar. They're not stretching their wings and seeing maybe some other things that they can do. They just want a sure hit.
But those are not even sure hits anymore because...
I know, not anymore. I mean, that's for sure. So
you cannot remake Dirty Dancing. Those two people had a magnetism within that film that I don't see anybody else being able to reach that standard.
Yeah, I can't even go there. It makes me want to cry. I'm not even joking. I mean, it's a classic movie. I mean, if they remake The Breakfast Club, I don't even know. I mean, it's horrible. So, there are certain movies and they captured certain time periods and they just kind of need to be left there for the enjoyment of the world, the way that they were originally intended.
Because it was the cult of the times. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, I cannot imagine them remaking that movie because the cast that was in that movie was of that time. They knew the times, they embraced the times, and to try to remake it in this time is like trying to, I don't know, remake the Catholic faith or the Catholic Church.
I agree with you 100%. And going back to the class factor, I don't know if you ever saw the movie, and I use this when I talk about class and just writing romance and writing, sexiness, did you ever see the movie, not the TV show, but the movie, The Ghost of Mrs. Muir?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
That's an amazing movie. That is one of the most romantic movies ever, and they never even kiss in it.
I know, but you feel the electricity. It comes through on the screen between Mrs. Muir and this ghost, and you want him to have that happily ever after.
Yes, and I mean, so yeah, I agree with you. There's something happened between those days of Rex Harrison and now, I don't know, something went awry, you know, and it's sad.
When the romance is not romance, it's just porn, it takes something away from the mystery of the movie within itself.
Right, and I'm all for writing hot. I think writing hot is amazing, and I think it's great and fun, and, you know, we are Women Heroes Roar, and it's terrific to do that and be all out there, but I do feel that anything with sexiness has to move the plot forward and not just be there just because that's what people want right now.
You are definitely a woman after my own heart, because when they when I write a sex scene, and by the way, I am notorious for saving my sex scenes till the book is done, and my editor goes, "Now you have to write 3 sex scenes," and yells at me because they're the hardest scenes to write in the book. The first thing I ask myself is, how is this moving the plot forward? Because if it's not moving the plot forward, I don't want to put it in there. Yeah, because then really all it does is it's empty words.
Yeah. And then what you'll find is people are so desensitized to it nowadays that they'll just skip over it.
Right. They won't even read it because there's no point of going from point A to point B. It's the same thing in the movies and on television. Forget television.
Right. Yeah.
Porn sales. It's not sex anymore. Porn sales.
Yeah. But so that's something I struggle with because I just signed. I actually signed a contract with Loose ID, not too recently. You know, maybe it was in August, and they are an amazing publisher. But they loved the story, and the first thing I had to do is make it sexier because that's what they wanted, and that's what their readers like. And so I did, but they were adamant on the fact that it moved the plot forward. They were like, "Don't just stick a sex scene in there because that's what we want. We want it to be plot moving and meaningful."
And that I can appreciate.
Mhm.
But I can appreciate the sex scene to move the plot forward, but to me it needs to be tastefully done. And,
absolutely.
But just to have it thrown in there just for the shock factor is not going to sell the book. Because like you said, they'll bypass it.
And people will find, I think as people evolve as an author, the first sex scenes you write are always the easiest ones because you've never done it before. And then when you're 15 books, including anthologies in, and you're trying to figure out how to get tab A into, slot B, there better be some plot there or this sex scene's not going to be great.
Yeah, it's just going to be porn. And
it's just going to be a rehash of the other sex scenes that you've done, because every author also has their favorite isms that they'll use over and over again, so you definitely don't want to just recycle the same scene over again. So.
And on that note, my friend, tell the folks where your wonderful self can be found on the Internet, because you know that after this hot topic, people are going to be scrambling around to find Miss Kim Carmichael. So let folks know where you can be found.
Okay, so Facebook under Kim Carmichael Novels, and my website at kimcarmichaelnovels.com. And also on Amazon, feel free to follow me. Just type in Kim Carmichael and you'll see me there with my very dramatic picture because I'm all about the drama.
I love that picture. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't seen that picture, and make your heart stop. Miss Kriss, right quick, let folks know where you can be found so that they can get more education from you.
On Facebook, it's all in caps, blue ribbon, and then it's a dash, male breast cancer, and it'll show Brock, and just, like I said when I was talking, that if you want to join, I have to kind of know who you are, and I just don't let anybody on, because I've had people that want to sell things and.
Oh, that's not okay.
Yeah, and they want to just talk about female breast cancer, and this is for males. So it's about male breast cancer. It's not just. But I have put on sometimes something to do with women, but it also mainly is for men, about men, I should say.
So now, Miss Kim, this is what I ask every person that I have on my show, because I like to get input and feedback,
okay.
And because we have dreamers that listen to the show. You know, we all have a dream, no matter if someone says I don't have a dream, they lie. They just haven't come to the realization that that dream is important. So because we are artists and we are crafters, what advice would you give a dreamer?
Don't give up, even when you have a drawer full of rejection letters, and don't let anybody steal your joy ever. And that will snuff at a dream very quickly. I had, over the summer, I had a moment that I really wanted to quit, and you just can't let anybody else steal your joy. And always be improving.
The next time you get a moment of wanting to quit, you contact me.
I will. And I have some really amazing friends, my amazing PA, and all my beta readers and everybody that kept me going in a time that I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. So, you know, you have to surround yourself with really great, amazing people. And if these people are not uplifting you in your craft and creativity, get rid of them.
Amen.
You know, and I'm very lucky. My husband is very, very supportive of my writing. And, you know, he's a creative guy. He makes videos, and he understands. And if somebody doesn't understand you, they don't need to be there.
Because they have now become a liability, and you know what?
Yeah, absolutely.
Liability.
Yeah, never let anybody steal the creativity part. That's what makes you you. If not, you're just going through the motions. So never let anybody steal that. And
on that same note, no one can steal your dream without your permission either.
Exactly. And I, as I said, I had kind of like a yucky thing happen. I thought I was getting a contract, didn't get it, and I was crushed. I was so crushed. And it took me a couple months, but I surrounded myself with amazing people and amazing readers who got me through it.
Well, you are a strong, strong woman.
And then I went and I sold the book, so there you go.
See, there you go.
And I'm really happy now.
They might bend you, but they will never break you. And the next time you get down like that, you contact me, and this is what I will say.
And I'm always here for you, too. So, because we got to stick together as women and as artists, because no one else is going to do it.
No, they won't. And if we don't believe in ourselves, then nobody else will believe in us. And even at our lowest point, Kim and Kriss, I'm speaking to both of you, even in our lowest point, we have to believe that we are worthwhile, that what we have to offer is important, and that if we don't continue our dream, we have failed.
Absolutely. And on that note, I also say always make sure you're improving. Don't just because you got the book published or you hit a list or whatever happened, don't just stop learning how to hone your craft, because there's always something you can work on. And I got back in the edit, one of my edits, and I'm still learning, and I take these things as opportunities now, not as someone, and I learn with every edit that I get back, and that's a really cool thing, I think.
So, ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight has been, on the first hour, Miss Kriss Bowles, and we talked about her husband, who she sadly lost to men's breast cancer. And both mine and Kim's and Kriss' advice to every listener out there is this. If you have a brother, a father, a grandfather, a husband, a lover, a significant other, a friend, talk to them. Get them to go and get checked, because men do get breast cancer and men do die from breast cancer. And guys, listen, you're not that strong. We know this. Women know this. You think you are. You put on that face. You're the manly man. You're macho man. You're 10 feet tall and bulletproof. But let me tell you what. Cancer knows no gender. Cancer knows no age. And cancer will kill you. So if you want to live to see your children grown, your grandchildren born, you want to grow old with the ones that you love, take your happy self to the doctor and get checked. Am I right, ladies?
Absolutely.
And my second guest, on a lighter note, see how fast I can change gears, is a delightful lady out of Los Angeles, author Kim Carmichael. She writes contemporary romance. Her favorite all-time thing is Phantom of the Opera, which has now endeared me to her beyond words.
Yay.
And Kim, I'm bringing you back, too. So after the first of the year, just mark it that you're coming back.
I would love to do that, for sure.
Because we just are having a rockin' old time. And, Kriss, I want to bring you back because we're going to get this thing with men's breast cancer awareness out there. If I
Kriss,
have
do you have a charity, Kriss? Is that your group?
Not really.
Because, sometimes us authors, if we have a good cause, we like to get together and write a little anthology, and we like to donate part of the proceeds to a cause, and I, for one, would think that this would be an amazing cause.
There is a guy on Facebook, I've never met him, Steve, and he has a foundation called Protect the Pecs, and he has he's had breast cancer and everything. I'm not sure about the other. I don't think the other two guys that I really, talk to, kind of. I don't think they have anything. They just go out and spread the word and all that because they both.
Well, maybe you and I can
cancer.
connect, after the show and talk about it because I think that would be a really amazing.
The one thing, like I said during, my hour was that Martin Truex Jr. from NASCAR, his girlfriend Sherry Pollux had ovarian cancer, and he has a foundation for that and for children's cancer. And Martin's foundation did put a sticker, because I have a sticker that I send people. And he put that, or the women at his foundation put on there about male breast cancer. So I was saying something about maybe giving to Martin's foundation or give to a local charity that, helps women or helps people with breast cancer, male or female.
Right.
After the show, you two ladies friend each other. Y'all can find each other on my Facebook because both of you are my friends. And see if y'all can work something out.
Yeah. So, because
us
authors love a good cause. Yeah. We're a charitable lot, right, Yvonne?
Yes, we are. We are very charitable. And we like to pay it forward. Yes, we do.
We do.
So,
we do.
Oh, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, understand this. This is called Off the Chain for a reason. If you have a passion, if you have a craft, if you have a dream, if you have a platform, and you want to be on this show, it costs you absolutely nothing except your time. Because I am a proponent, and these ladies will tell you, I am a proponent of paying it forward. In my journey as a writer and as an author, I've had a lot of help and a lot of support. My radio show was a 5-year dream, and I made it happen. But in order to make it even more successful, I need each and every one of you. And ladies, I thank you both so much for the honor that you have come on my show, and with so much humility, I say thank you, and I appreciate the fact that you took time out of your life to come on the show and go off the chain with me.
I had an amazing time. Thank you so much for having me here.
You are quite welcome, and you are coming back. You both are.
I'm going to come back for sure. Julia, make a note.
Julia, make a note. We know you're listening. Tomorrow night on the show, she's annoying. On the 8 o'clock hour will be author David Hoof. Now, this man is he's a wizard. I can't wait to interview him. At at the 9 o'clock hour, I have Miss Julia Clare, your PA.
My PA,
Kim,
yay!
And Virginia Johnson. Both of these ladies have collaborated to write an amazing book. I will be interviewing them at 9 o'clock. I will be interviewing David Hoof at 8 o'clock. So understand, that if you miss the show, you get to listen to it in archives, but it's not half as much fun. So join me tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So those of you that have to call in on Eastern Standard Time. Julia, you call in at 8:50 Eastern Standard Time, and David calls in at 7:50 Eastern Standard Time. So
you are going to have so much fun with them. Oh, my God.
Yes, I will. So with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this is Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason, with my guest, Kriss Bowles, and author Kim Carmichael. And spread the word. Contact me. Let's do this. Let's go off the chain together. And with that, I say good evening.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you so, so much. And you two hook up together, and this show was going to go into archives, and everything we're saying now will show up in the archive show. And then it will automatically go up on iTunes. It will also go up on Stitcher, which is heard through Sirius Radio in the cars. Then I will upload it on SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Podcast.com, and Spreaker. When I upload it on Spreaker, it will go to TuneIn Radio and YouTube. When I upload the show, I will put the link up on my Facebook page and tag both of y'all. I want you both to use this show for any reason that you want to. I want you to promote men's breast cancer. Kriss, Kim, use it to promote yourself and your books.
Thank you.
Put it on your website. This is
Absolutely.
your show.
I was just typing Julia.
Wow.
And you ladies have a wonderful evening, and when I get off from here, I'll get y'all set up for next year and bring you both back.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ladies, and we'll talk later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be confusing. Like Swedish techno confusing.
Bark, bark, meow, meow. Dance with me, purple cow. Bark, bark, meow, meow. Ooh, you lovely cow.
Geico makes it easy. With 24/7 access, all you have to do is go to Geico.com and you could save money on car insurance. It just makes sense. Unlike,
Dance with me, purple cow. I like your moves.
When I listen to Audible, I'm not cooking dinner for one. I'm on horseback, galloping across the Scottish moors towards my one true love. There, through the mist, I see my beloved, kilt flapping in the breeze. The fibers of his shirt struggle against his bulging muscles as he takes me from my horse and... my frittata!
Go to audible.com/start trial and your first download is free. Audible. Stories that surround you.